Right now, you are surrounded by invisible rules you never agreed to. You wait in line, you keep your voice down in a library, you don't stare at strangers. Nobody wrote these down, and no police enforce them. Yet you follow them anyway. We tend to think laws were invented by kings, courts, and men in wigs. That real rules only began when someone finally wrote them on stone or paper. So here is something that should genuinely surprise you. Humans were living under strict, powerful laws long before writing existed, for tens of thousands of years, with no police, no courts, and no books at all. To see how, we have to look at how our ancestors actually lived. For almost all of human history, people survived in small bands of hunter-gatherers, a few dozen people moving together, sharing food, sleeping close. In a group that small, there is nowhere to hide. Everybody sees everything you do every single day. And anthropologists who studied surviving hunter-gatherer groups noticed something striking. These societies were not lawless, and they were not chaos. They were held together by a code that everyone knew and almost nobody broke. A code that was, in some ways, stricter than the laws you live under today. But here is the part that flips everything you assume about the past. When you picture ancient rules, you probably imagine a chief or a king. A single powerful man at the top telling everyone else what to do. That image is almost exactly backwards, because the number one law of these groups was not obey the leader. It was the opposite. The most serious crime you could commit was trying to become the leader. Trying to rise above everyone else was the one thing they would not allow. An anthropologist named Christopher Boehm spent years studying this pattern. He looked at dozens of hunter-gatherer societies across the whole world, and he found the same rule appearing again and again everywhere he looked. He called it reverse dominance. In most groups of apes, a few strong individuals dominate everyone below them. A single alpha takes the best food, the best mates, the most power. Our closest animal relatives still live exactly like this. But somewhere in our past, humans did something no other ape had ever done. The many quietly agreed to gang up on anyone who tried to rule them, not to crown an alpha, but to take alphas down. If one person started acting superior, the whole group pushed back together. They flipped the pyramid of power upside down. The group as a whole became more powerful than any single person in it, and they defended that balance with a system of punishment, a system that started gently and could end in something terrifying. Because a rule means nothing if there is no consequence for breaking it, and these groups had no jails, no fines, and no written sentences. So how do you punish someone when you have none of the tools we use today? The answer was a ladder with several steps, and each step was more frightening than the last. The first step was the gentlest and also the most human: talk. If someone started behaving badly, people began to gossip about them. Quiet words around the fire, a reputation slowly turning sour. In a tiny group, your reputation was everything you had. Gossip was not idle. It was the first warning shot. If the behavior continued, the group moved to the next step: ridicule. They would mock the person, tease them, make them a joke. For a proud person acting superior, being laughed at was a powerful correction. It said, without violence, remember that you are no better than us. If teasing failed, the next step was colder: shame and open criticism. Now the warnings were direct and everyone could hear them. And if the person still would not change, the group reached a chilling step. They simply began to act as if the person did not exist. No one spoke to them. No one shared food with them. No one met their eyes. For a social animal in a group of only 30 people, this was devastating. You became a ghost among the only people in your world. And if even that did not work, there was one final step left, the one nobody wanted to reach: samaik. Because the last resort was not a prison, it was banishment. And in the ancient world, banishment was often a quiet death sentence. But there was one punishment even more extreme than being sent away. One that the group would carry out together with their own hands. In about 2 minutes, I'll show you what it was and why it changed our species. To understand the final step, you have to understand what was at stake. A hunter-gatherer band survived only by working together. They shared meat because one hunter could not always make a kill. Today you feed me, tomorrow I feed you. That was the deal that kept everyone alive. A single selfish bully could break that entire system. Someone who took the best food, threatened others, and refused to share was not just being rude. He was a threat to everyone's survival, and a group living on the edge could not afford that threat forever. So in the most extreme cases, the group made a collective decision. Anthropologists studying these societies found records of it again and again. The band would agree, together, that a dangerous person had to be removed, and they would carry out an execution as a group. Often it was arranged so that no single person was the killer. Sometimes a close relative of the offender was even asked to do it, so that no one family could seek revenge for the death. This was not a murder. In their eyes, it was justice. It was the community enforcing its most basic law: do not dominate others, do not endanger the group. And here is where the story becomes genuinely astonishing, because Boehm and others argue this had an effect over immense stretches of time. Imagine this happening across thousands of generations. Generation after generation, the most aggressive, domineering people were the ones most likely to be punished, driven out, or killed. And the calmer, more cooperative people were the ones who survived and had children. Slowly, over tens of thousands of years, this may have changed us, not just our culture, our very nature. We may have quietly bred ourselves to be gentler. Scientists call this idea self-domestication, the theory that humans tamed themselves the way we later tamed wolves into dogs. If that idea just rearranged something in your head, take a second and hit like. It genuinely helps. Stop and sit with that for a moment. The kindness in you, the discomfort you feel around cruelty, may have been carved into your species by your ancestors punishing their bullies for 1,000 generations before a single law was ever written down. But I promised you honesty, so here is the other side. This is a theory built from studying living hunter-gatherers and reading the past through them. We cannot travel back and watch a Stone Age trial with our own eyes. Not every ancient group was perfectly equal, and life was not a peaceful paradise. These same people could be violent, and feuds between groups were common. Reverse dominance controlled bullies inside the band, not war between bands. And equal among the men did not always mean equal for everyone. So this is our best reconstruction, not a certain history, but the core pattern shows up so consistently across so many separate cultures that most researchers agree on the heart of it. Ancient humans policed each other long before any state did it for them, which brings us back to the invisible rules you started with, the ones you follow every day with no police in sight. Why do you feel a hot flash of embarrassment when you break a social rule? Why does being laughed at or ignored or excluded hurt so much? Why do you care, sometimes desperately, what other people think of you? That feeling is not weakness. It is ancient. It is the same machinery that kept your ancestors in line for 100,000 years. Gossip, ridicule, shame, exclusion, the exact same ladder. You feel their power in your body every day without ever being touched. Your fear of embarrassment is a law older than any government. It is the group still living inside your head, watching you the way the band once watched everyone. And this is where it quietly becomes about you, because these ancient laws never actually went away. We just built bigger ones on top of them. When farming began and groups grew into thousands, the old system broke. You cannot gossip about a stranger you will never meet. You cannot shame a person you will never see. So as societies grew huge, we needed something new to keep order. We needed written laws, judges, police, and prisons. Kings and states rose up, and the pyramid of power flipped right way up again. The alphas we once suppressed became emperors. But underneath all of it, the ancient code is still running inside you. You still feel it every time you hold a door or wait your turn or lower your voice. Most of your behavior is not controlled by the law of the land. It is controlled by a far older law, the fear of what the group will think. Written laws govern maybe a thin top layer of your life. The ancient ones govern almost everything else, and you obey them every day without even noticing. We like to think civilization gave us morality, that without laws and police, humans would simply descend into chaos. But the evidence points somewhere stranger and somewhere more hopeful. Morality did not arrive with kings and courts. It was already there, tens of thousands of years earlier, around a fire, in small groups of people who decided together that no one gets to dominate. The first law was not carved in stone. It was agreed in the dark by people who simply refused to be ruled. So think back to those invisible rules from the very beginning. The line you wait in, the voice you lower, the stranger you don't stare at. You're not just being polite, you're obeying a code that is older than farming, older than cities, older than writing, a code your ancestors enforced with gossip and shame, and in the end with their lives. They flipped the pyramid of power and made a rule that echoes in you still. Do not rise above everyone else. Do not think you are better than the group. You feel that rule every day in the quiet fear of standing out for the wrong reasons. It kept our ancestors alive for 100,000 years, and it never once needed to be written down. We carry the whole history of law inside us, the gossip that guards a reputation, the shame that corrects a mistake, the deep need to be accepted by the people around us. These are not modern feelings. They are the oldest laws on earth. Every time you feel judged, you are feeling the ghost of the ancient band. Every time you hold yourself back to fit in, you are obeying it. And every time you feel the sting of being left out, you are feeling a punishment that is older than the written word. We built courts and constitutions to handle millions of strangers, but the machinery inside you was built for a group of 30. That mismatch explains a surprising amount about modern life. Why we crave approval from people we will never meet. Why a stranger's opinion online can wound us so deeply. Why being canceled or shunned feels like a threat to our very survival. Because for most of human history, it was. Exclusion from the group was not embarrassing. It was fatal. Your brain still does not fully know the difference. It still treats belonging as life and rejection as death. That is the inheritance those ancient laws left in you, a powerful, invisible pull toward the group running quietly beneath your every choice. We are the animal that learned to police itself long before any king claimed the right to do it for us. And in a strange way, that is a hopeful thought. It means fairness is not a fragile invention laid on top of a savage animal. It means the instinct for fairness runs deep, all the way to our roots. Our ancestors looked at the tyranny of the alpha in every ape around them, and they refused it. They built something new out of nothing but cooperation and courage, a society where the group would not be ruled, and they defended it so fiercely for so long that they may have reshaped what kind of animal we are. Every fair thing about you is partly their achievement. Every time you share or wait your turn or resent a bully, you are echoing a choice made around a fire tens of thousands of years ago. The choice to be equal, the choice not to be ruled. That was the first law, and it still lives quietly in you. So tell me in the comments, do you think we are naturally fair or naturally selfish? Sit with that honestly for a moment before you answer. And if you want more of the hidden history that made you who you are, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.